This is the Black TV Show podcast hosted by Miriam Temeskin. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 68, The Cosby Show Season 3, episode 20, Cliff's 50th birthday. This episode aired May 12th, 1987. First of all, I've mentioned there has been some continuity error with this. If you guys remember the Father's Day episode in season 1, where, Cliff asked them to give him presents in Christmas, and they mentioned that, his birthday was in October. And so, if this episode aired in March, then that's wrong. Also, remember that we celebrated Cliff's 49th birthday on the last episode of season 1 where Lena Horne guest starred. And that, I believe, aired in May. So we are just all over the place. And also, since this is season 3 and we're at the end of season 3, it's now been 2 years. So he's been 49 for 2 years. Like, what? So that is a major continuity error. And I know most people, if you watch white shows, most people know the show that is notorious for getting all the birthdays wrong is the show Friends, which is crazy to me because, you would have a continuity person, you have the producers that are very invested into the storyline. So I'm like, how do you mess up these birthdays? I know you're trying to get good episodes and you're incorporating things last minute, but still, just write down the day of each character's birthday and then do the storylines around that. I think that's the best idea. But don't quote me on that because I've never created a TV show. So I'm probably the wrong person for that information. But anyways, the episode synopsis is Denise and Sandra come home from college to celebrate their father's 50th birthday. So we start off with Cliff lost one of his socks. And he asked Claire, do you know where they are? And she was like, I don't know, but I can use it as a rag. Claire was like, we can buy you a new pair for your birthday. And he's like, no, I don't need that. And so Claire asked, what do you want to do for your birthday? And he's like, nothing special. Just hang out with the kids, have a present. And Claire asked, what kind of present? And he's like, I want a giraffe. What? That's such a random gift. And as Claire says, where are we going to put the giraffe? He says, in the basement, we'll cut a hole in the kitchen so its head comes out. What is he thinking? I don't understand. And then Claire was like, you know what? Let's have a party. You've never had that for your birthday. We'll have a grown-up party with your friends without the children. And he's like, what about the children? He's like, well, we can have a birthday party in the daytime, around the afternoon. He's like, okay. And Claire says, you can invite whoever you like. And he's like, yes, I'm happy. And so the first person he mentions is Harry Jefferson. He played football at school with Cliff. I'm assuming this is college football. I'm not sure if he was talking about high school. But Claire is just like, no, I don't really want him. So basically she's like, oh, it's the guy that drinks liquid and then puts the cans on his head and smash them. And Cliff was like, that was 30 years ago. Things have changed. He's probably a grown man, which I agree with him. Yeah, the impression that you have of a person from the past, you assume that just continues on, but everyone grows. If everyone stayed the same that they were, in their teenager or young adult life, then life is not moving, basically, And so I agree with Cliff. He probably has changed, but we will never see him on this episode because, Claire doesn't want him there. But I also want to mention some fun facts about this person in particular. The first person that Cliff names who he wants to attend to his birthday party is Harry Jefferson, who he used to play football at school with. Harry Jefferson is actually one of Bill Cosby's closest friends, and they knew one another from the Marine Corps, where they actually played football together on Marine Corps team. Didn't know that. I found that out on IMDb. But of course, we will actually never meet Harry on this episode. Then the second name he has is Clarence Petway. I think that's how he said the last name. He went to medical school with Cliff, and apparently I'm assuming he works in emergency, and at the time he was either just studying or he was a resident in emergency. He talks about all the accident victims that he sees, basically just ruining conversations because you just don't want to hear about these gross things. So she points out that like she's gonna cook for 3 days just for him to ruin everyone's appetites. And so he's like, okay, fine. And so the third name he thinks of is Mark Eden. First of all, the first two, Claire just doesn't want them. So they've kind of like crossed them out of the list. And so Mark Eden, I think that's how you say his last name, is Cliff's friend. But Cliff says, oh, we're like, this is our friend. It's not my friend. It's our friend as a mutual thing. And Claire was like, no. His wife, Margie, is my friend. And they divorced. So they're not together. She's not going to show up. And she ended up remarrying. And so Claire points out, she shouldn't have even married Mark in the first place. She should have, so basically, Claire is saying that Mark is just a horrible, sleazy guy. He's horrible. And we don't know why she thinks that. We will find out why. But it's just, you're just like, what is wrong with this guy that she's so, like, I don't want, he shouldn't even married her friend in the first place. So then Cliff was like, okay, well, if you're having an issue with all the people I name, like, who am I going to invite? This is my party. I thought you said this is a grown-up party, whoever I want to invite. And so he says, look at those 3 names. Out of those 3 names, who would you pick to come? Or who you don't, out of the list, I guess, like the most out of all the disliked people that she doesn't like? I don't know if that made sense. Likes all the better person out of all the, oh man, I don't know how to interpret it this way. The best person out of the whole worst list of people, I guess. I'm not sure. And so she picks Mark, and he is happy. And so she was like, I will deal for 1 day just for your birthday with him, Cliff mentions another name to invite that is probably the best person that he thinks, and he says Eunice Chantelli. And by the way, we hear this name so many times throughout the show or throughout the series. Eunice Chantelli was someone that Cliff loved back in the day as kids, and Claire despises her. She was much older, and so when he says that her name, she just gets mad and jumps on the bed and chases him around the room. And so it's the day of his birthday, and Cliff had lunch with his children. Rudy made some scrambled eggs with peanut butter, and she asked Cliff, like, oh, do you like it? And he's like, I hated it. And she was like, I made it, though. And he's like, oh, I love it. And so he asked, like, where is my present? He asked the kids, where are my present? And they said, the lunch was your present. He's like, no. I want a present that's in a box with a ribbon on it, and it's expensive. And so Claire was like, okay, fine. Well, they did get you something, but it's in the living room. So he has to close his eyes before going in. And so she has Claire, while the kids are running into the living room, she has to cover his eyes, but she didn't really do much of a good job, because by the time he gets in, he noticed that there's an easel there, and he's like, what's the easel? And Rudy was like, no fair, you're peeking. And so basically we see that they're doing a presentation for him, and already he just doesn't want to deal with this. This is not the kind of present he wants. So they basically said they want to make him comfortable with the age that he is in. And Sandra says, turning 50 is a monumental occasion in a man's life. And Cliff was like, oh, Lord, who will let this children in this house or this child in this house? And so the easel says things that are older than dad. And Cliff is just not impressed with that. And I believe they do this again for Claire eventually when it's her birthday. I just don't know which season, because I feel like this happens again. Or it's not the easel, but they do it in a different way, but it's basically similar to this kind of format. What is older than that person, or what, there was an episode in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that, when Aunt Viv, the original Aunt Viv, when she turned 40, they showed photos of her, when she was a dancer and everything. So there's something like that I remember for Claire. I just don't know which season, what episode, but we will get to that at some point, okay? And so the light bulb is older than Dad. So I had to look that up. It is. It was created in 1802. Not going into the details of who invented it. And then they get another poster and says, the wheel is older than Dad. And the wheel was created in 3500 BC. So way, 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 way long ago. Long time, So yes, it is older than Dad. And then they say fire is older than Dad. And I'm like, but fire is an element. So... It's not really older than Dad. Like, we're talking about things that were invented. You could say a car was older than someone. A machine was older than someone. But fire, it's an element. So them saying that doesn't make any sense, because then you're saying air is older than Dad. Water is older than Dad. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And so they also say dirt is older than Dad. Isn't dirt supposed to be like, I don't know, 99% of skin? I can't remember, but I feel like a lot of dirt, like, of course, dirt is collected by other things, but especially like dust, it's is basically skin. That's what dust is. It's dead skin. I'm like, okay. And so, like, those two just didn't make sense. But the light bulb and the wheel, that makes sense to say that it is older than him. And so then Sandra says that all of them have in common, they prove themselves through the test of time. We need them very much, just like Dad. Fire, of course, we need it for food. Dirt, we need it... Actually, I don't even know. Why would we need dirt? I don't know. Light bulbs, of course, at night. We need that. A wheel to drive, of course. And so Cliff is just not impressed by this whole presentation, and he just wants a present. And they're like, okay, we have a present, and we all chipped in as kids for him for something that he can use. It's a key ring that rings when you clap. I've never seen one of this, or I've had a friend that had one, but this seems like a thing that people can have. I know I have like a key ring that's like lights up, but I've never, based on clapping, I've never tried that. But that's pretty cool, like, because I tend to sometimes lose my keys, and in that case with them, they said because Cliff loses his keys, very often, that this would help him find them by just clapping, and it will ring, and he'll be able to find the key. But the problem is, it doesn't work for Cliff. So each kid tries, first of all, Sandra explains it, and she goes, and it rings. And I clapped right there. And it doesn't work. Then, Rudy tries, and Vanessa tries, Theo tries, and then even Denise tries from a further distance, and it doesn't work. And like Cliff keeps trying, and even Claire tries, and it works. And it's only Cliff that doesn't work. And Cliff was like, "Are you playing a joke on me? You have something that's ringing at the same time." And they were like, "No, this is not a joke. We're serious about this. I don't know what's going on." So he was like, Rudy was like, "Okay, fine. If you don't want it, I'll take it." And he's like, No. This is a gift from my kids. I want to keep it. So he puts it in his pocket, and they were like, "Yay, Dad! Clap, clap, clap." They're all clapping, and all of a sudden it rings nonstop. So it is the evening for the grown-up party. And it's all of Cliff's grown-up friends, of course. And they're all enjoying themselves. And the doorbell rings, and it's Mark with his daughter, Ellen. Mark was late. He said that the traffic from Philadelphia, or I don't know if he said Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, but same difference, was backed up, which seems like a long drive, I can't remember how many hours it is. My cousin lives in Philadelphia, and she does take a lot of trips to New York because the church that she prays at is in New York. But that's a very long drive, I would think. And so, but then Ellen says, no, he's lying. We got lost. We couldn't find the place. That's why. And so Mark tries to say hi to Claire, but she changes subject by saying, "Hey, Ellen, I didn't know you came." And she's like, "Yeah, the only reason why I came was because of my mom. It was my mom's weekend, but she came down with the flu." And Claire says, "Oh, I wish I had known because all the girls went to the movies." And Cliff was like, "Well, no, Theo's here. He's upstairs. You can hang out with him." And so Cliff asks Theo to come down, and he introduces Mark and Ellen to him, and Theo's about to go back up, and Cliff was like, no, do you want to take Ellen out to a movie? And he looks at her and is like, I'm good. I don't want to take her to the movie. She's a little girl, Although when you look at her, she doesn't look that little. Like, I swear, if I was 12, if you see photos of me as 12, I looked way younger than that. So he has no issue taking out this girl to the movie. Cliff says, I need to talk to you, Theo. And so Claire was like, okay, let's all go to the dining room for dinner. So they're all the friends are leaving, and Claire is just, I don't know what she was doing, but she was doing some stuff. And Mark tries to talk to her, and Mark he can't really get through her. She's just like, I'm good. Denise is fine at college, and they end up going to the dining room. And while this is happening, Cliff is watching it, and he's like, oh boy, I don't know what we're getting into. And so he goes into the kitchen to talk to Theo and says, why can't you take Ellen out? Why can't you take Ellen out? Because she's not going to have fun with the adults. And Theo says he doesn't want to take Ellen out in public. She's just a kid because she's 12 years old. Although, he's 16. So 4 years is not big of a difference. I've went to places with 4 years older than me. Of course, they're not males that were, I went with older family friends that were 4 years older, and they had no issues taking me to places. So I don't know what was his issue with this. Not sure. And Cliff brings up that, you remember the episode, The Shower, which was that last week's episode? Oh my God, I'm forgetting. Yeah, it was the last week's episode. I don't know. My memory's gone all over the place. So last week's episode, or the last episode, in The Shower, he mentioned that, he wants to do all the partying until he reaches 24 to finally settle down. And that someone could be Ellen, because at that time she's going to be 21 years old. So, and she might be that person, right? And so Theo says, okay, I will watch her. And it's not because, if later on she's going to be a nice girl, it's because it's Cliff's birthday, and he, wants to give Cliff the break, basically. And we end Act 1 and we go into Act 2. And it's dinner time, or I was going to say it's dinner time, but dinner is over. And everyone's talking about the past, about some skiing weekend, the ski trip that they took. And they bring up Marjorie, who is, of course, Claire's friend and Mark's ex-wife. And everyone's saying such great things about her. But Mark keeps bringing her down, saying, she complained about the cold. All she wanted was, some hot chocolate. And Claire was like, yeah, it was cold. Of course. And so Claire tries to change the topic by telling everyone, let's go to the living room. And so everyone goes, except for Cliff and Claire, because they're cleaning up. And, Claire is just like, I can't deal with it. She's frustrated with Mark, how can he be complaining about Marge? And so Claire doesn't want to be in the same room as Mark. She just wants to kill him. That's basically the summary of this, okay? She wants to kill him, okay? She just, for being so mean to her friend. That's basically how she feels. So we cut to Theo's room with Ellen, and they are talking about school, and then they talk about movies, and they talked about the return of The Walking Dead. And when I heard about that, I was like, oh, The Walking Dead, the show. But of course, back then, there was no show called Walking Dead, and I wanted to check if there was a movie called The Return of the Walking Dead. There was not. So this is what the writers, they decided to create something to make it, because sometimes you can't take the name of a real movie, so they created one. But it's cool. I've never seen Walking Dead. I've had a few friends that have seen it, and they love it. Not my show. But if you love that show, go check it out. And Ellen isn't allowed to see horror movies, and she can only see G movies. Yeah, at 12 years old, that was my life. I don't really like horror movies, to be honest, so that's not my issue. But at 12 years old, I was told to watch G movies. Of course, as an only child and, not much of a supervision, there's times where I watch some PG movies, or, 14, is it 14A or something like that? I feel like I was watching a few reality shows that were not even PG, and I think I've seen movies that are also PG or something else when I was 12 years old. So I like how she's so strict about it. And Theo doesn't know what to do with that statement that she said. But we cut back to the kitchen, and Mark comes in with Cliff. Or Cliff is there making coffee, and Mark is looking for Claire. And Claire's in the basement cleaning the tablecloth. Apparently she's soaking it, which is weird. Why would you do that while there's guests over? You could do that afterwards. So I don't know what's with that deal. And then Mark says, okay, then I'll go down and help her. Cliff was like, no. You stay with me. It's better for you to stay up here. And he's like, no. I want to go see her. And so Mark says, okay, I realize there's a problem. And he really wants to talk to Claire. And so Cliff is like, okay, fine. But I'm not here to defend you, so you're on your own. And he's like, okay, fine, you're not really much of a, I forgot the word they used, but it was like a football terminology. But so Cliff yells out, I'm taking the coffee into the living room. And Claire was like, okay, I'm just coming up and about to finish the dishes. And she noticed Mark's in the kitchen. And so Mark just says, oh, I can help you with the dishwasher. And she's like, no, I'm okay. I don't know if it's the dishwasher or dishes that he's talking about, but just in general, the dishes. And she was like, I don't need any help. And Mark says he wants to clear things up. And so Claire is just angry with Mark. It's been 5 years since the divorce with Marge. And, we find out that Mark had cheated on her. That is why Claire is mad, which I don't blame her. If my best friend, or I don't know if they're best friends, but if my best friend's husband cheated on her, I would hate the guy. I'm on her side. I would hate that person. But we find out that, Marge has now moved on and got remarried 2 years ago. I think I just skipped a bit, but yeah, we find out that she remarried 2 years ago, and now she's happy. Of course, Mark is not happy because, Marge was the love of his life, a great friend, and now he will never get her back because he messed up, basically. And Marge has now forgiven him for what he did, and Claire was like, oh, okay, well, I'll think about it I'll forgive you at some point, but she's very hesitant. She's just not she's probably gonna call Marge and be like, so are you guys good before I forgive him myself? I feel like that's what her mindset was like. Okay, we'll let it slide for now, but we'll figure it out later. And so we cut back to Theo's room, and he's shooting some hoops, and we find out that Ellen knows a whole lot about basketball, and she has gone to many basketball games. And she says that she does a lot with her dad. She travels a lot with him. And they're planning this summer to go whitewater rafting. I think in Arizona, if I was correct. I might be wrong on that. But Theo tries to picture Vanessa and Cliff alone on a raft in a river, because that's basically, Vanessa's around the same age as Ellen. And he just doesn't, I don't think he imagines it as a good experience. But she points out that her dad wants to do as much as he can with the most of the time that he gets with her, because of course he gets 50, probably, I'm assuming, we don't know, but we assume it's 50-50 custody, right? So he only gets half the time with her. So he wants to use that time wisely by doing fun activities with her, which is wise on his part. I love traveling. If someone wants to take me traveling constantly, I would love that, And so Theo starts asking about her parents, and she points out, her parents have been divorced for 5 years, and she was only 7, and she cried a lot, but that's all she pretty much remembers at that time. But, now her mom got married 2 years ago to her stepfather, and he cares a lot for her, and everyone is just one big happy family. And Theo decides to invite Ellen if she wants to go roller skating with his friends. And she says, I would love to, I will have a great time. I guess he now has a change of heart, being like, I don't think I'm going to be ashamed to be with a 12-year-old skating, you know what I mean? After learning the fact that she loves basketball, she does she's gone through divorce and stuff. I guess his mind has now changed. It's time for everyone to leave, and Claire gives everyone some cake, and Cliff isn't happy because Claire is giving away his cake. He wants to have some, and Cliff says, he's like, I don't, like, that's not fair. Why are you guys getting cake? And so they all say bye to each other, and they all leave, and Cliff tells Claire, this was a lovely party, thank you. And Cliff tries to see if the keychain or key ring works again, and it doesn't work for him. And so Claire mentions she talked to Mark. So Cliff tries to see if the key ring will work now. It doesn't work for him, so he's just over it. So Claire mentions that she's talked to Mark and she listened to him. I mean, she didn't kill him or yell at him or hit him or anything. She just listened. And so Cliff brings up, divorce is tough. Having your friends like you and not like the other is hard. And Cliff said that, he imagines if they divorce, how many people would be on his side and her side. And while he's trying to explain himself, Claire interrupts him, saying, like, you've been thinking about this? At one point, like, when did you think about this? Like, because she's just in shock. Like, who thinks about divorce? No one should ever think about divorce unless you're really in a tough situation. So she's just, like, in shock. Like, what? How can you be thinking about divorce? And he's like, no, just, like, in his mind, he brings it as a hypothetical, because that's all we do on the show, bring up hypothetical situation. And so Claire was like, so what is your point with divorce? Why are you thinking about it? And he's like, I have no point. Because he's like, I don't want to defend myself against this lawyer. So Claire says, so where would you stay if you broke up with me? And Cliff says he doesn't think Cliff says he wouldn't know where he would live if they broke up. And Claire says, oh, Cliff, you would stay with the guy that puts cans on his head in a bachelor pad, which is the first, I forgot what was his name? His name was Harry Jefferson. Yeah. So she's talking about him. And he's like, no, I wouldn't. And so Cliff interrupts her, basically saying, you know what the truth is? With my birthday wish, with this cake that I had that I blew the wishes out, was that him and Claire would be in love together forever and married together forever. And Claire was like, aww, thank you, And first of all, I thought they say that, if you make a wish, you don't tell anyone until that wish it's happened. Of course, with this kind of wish, it only will happen. The only time you could talk about this is if one person died, based on this. So him telling her about the wish kind of ruined it. So does that mean they're going to get a divorce? Of course, no, because, well, in the 8 seasons that we see this show, they're together in love. But, we don't know what happens afterwards, And so Cliff says, yeah, that was the only wish, because you are a lawyer, and if we get a divorce, you're going to take everything that I have. And she's like, you're right. Because especially, she's like one of the top lawyers. Like, how is he going to win? How is he going to get half his assets? He will not. He would lose everything if he divorces. I think that's the bad part of being married to a lawyer. Wouldn't that be? Like, because they know the loopholes, and especially if you marry a good lawyer, like, that wins a lot of cases, you're screwed for life. You know what I mean? So thinking about it, it's just, it's sad. Maybe, for people that are listening, if you're not married, maybe not marry a lawyer, especially a good lawyer. Well, I guess any lawyer, because I could say bad lawyers, but the ones that can win cases, I don't think you should marry them, because just in case you end up having divorce, you don't want to deal with that, okay? And so, they're getting ready to go to bed, and Cliff points out that his tummy is so full from this cake, and he pats his tummy, and the key ring makes noise, and it rings. And we end the episode right there, which is crazy because like he from clapping he couldn't make it ring. Everyone else was able to make it ring, but hitting his stomach made the key ring crazy. So there were quite a few guest stars on this episode. A lot of them actually didn't do much acting. I didn't realize that. So Douglas Turner Ward, who played Mark, he actually passed away this year. Crazy to think about that. He passed away at the age of 90 in February, and he has 12 credits. One being on the show Cosby, which I've never seen myself, which is so sad because someone that's hosting a Black TV show podcast should know all the Black shows. So I apologize. I don't know why I never watched Cosby. It was never on TV for me. Like the Cosby Show was on every single day, like on TBS, and other channels I remember. But Cosby itself, the show that like happens after the Cosby Show, I just couldn't find it. I hope to one day actually watch it because some of our listeners on this podcast I know have mentioned to me that I should watch it. It's a really good show. It's kind of like what happens after Cliff and Claire didn't have children. In a way, I've been told that it should have been like a show about when all the kids are out of the house and it's just them. I feel like that's what they were trying to go for. Originally, I heard that Felicia Rashad was not like part of the main cast, and then whoever was casted for a role, Bill Cosby didn't like them, and so then he brought Felicia. Not sure if that's true. I'm just making up some rumors here, but that's what I've heard. But yeah, I hope to watch the show someday. And also, guys, I didn't know that there was also the Bill Cosby show before the Cosby Show. It's like weird because he started off with the Bill Cosby Show, then took out the Bill and said the Cosby Show, and then he created a show and took out the and the show and just called it Cosby. What is this? You know, it could. I know there are three different story lines basically, because I believe the Bill Cosby Show is about him being a teacher. I believe that's what it is. Yet again, do not quote me. I'm making rumors here. But I think he's also single in that character. And then, so I like each show kind of shows different perspective of a man, basically, you know, being a teacher, being younger, and then with this show being a family show where you have kids, and then I guess Cosby itself was, I guess, retired parents. I don't know. As I said, I am making rumors, but you listeners can tell me all about it if you've seen both shows, Cosby and the Bill Cosby Show. Let me know. I would love to hear the details. Let me know where I can watch it, because I live here in Canada. I don't live in the States, so I know in the States it's more accessible to see certain shows. So I don't know where I can see it, but if you know where I could find both those shows, let me know, because I would love to watch it and compare it to this legendary show, The Cosby Show. And so back to the guest stars, because I kind of sidetracked it right here. So Douglas only had 12 credits. He played Mark. Then we have Carmen de Lavadella. I think that's how you say her last name. She's done 27 credits. Nothing that I was familiar with. I think I believe she did Carmen. And then Cheryl McFadden, which actually found out she goes by the names as Gates McFadden. I don't know why she changed her name. I think Cheryl would have been perfectly fine. I believe this is the white woman of that couple that we saw. There was like a white couple and a black couple. So I believe Cheryl is that person. And she's known for Star Trek. There's like different versions of Star Trek. So she's known for that a character in Star Trek. Then we have Ashley Thompson as Ellen. She's only done 4 credits. She was also in the Sister Act 2, which I've never seen. I've seen Sister Act, the first one, but I have not had time to watch Sister Act 2. I would love to at some point. So she didn't do much acting afterwards. I feel like, yet again, this is a girl from the hood. I'm not sure if Sister Act 2 was filmed in New York. If that was the case, that just proves my point. And then Omar Torts only had 3 credits. who I believe it was the guy that spoke a different language in French, I believe, who was married to that white woman. And then there was a person in the credits that's named Mel Winkler, who actually is a known actor, done so many things. He's been on a lot of other black shows, but I won't name them because I don't even know if he was shown in this episode. And I checked IMDb, there is no character name. So what I think in this case is this Mel, this guy that I believe, yeah, he's a guy. I believe there was a scene with him in this episode, but what happened was that they cut it out of the show. I've worked on a show similar to this, how this worked out, where we had a character that played a lawyer or something like that, and they filmed it, and then after it was like the first episode, and after a few episodes of filming, they decided to change that scene into a different scene, and basically she was out of the episode, and I watched the episode and I didn't see her, but they still had her name in the credits. So I think that's what the case is. But with these credits, they don't tell you who the character is. I always have to go through IMDb to look up what they've done. The show that I worked on, they actually specifically said what that actor did as a character. So it's hard. I couldn't figure it out. But yeah, if you watch the episode at the end and you see that character, like, you're like, who is that person? But so I just assumed that he was in a scene and they end up cutting it because of time. That's always the case. They always I learned that with a lot of TV shows, they overfilm, so they do more scenes than what can actually fit in a time slot, and then start cutting it, which is a better idea than to have less time filmed and then you don't have enough ad time, basically. So the lesson for this episode is divorce is hard, but at the end of the day, it's the best thing because it leads to a better life. Because Marge has been able to remarry someone and now is happy with her life, it seems like, which I was like, I think I was listening to a podcast. Yeah, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about divorce, and they were saying how it was actually a good thing for that person. They were able to have a better life instead of being stuck in a marriage. So that's the case in this episode. Crazy that the fact that we're talking about divorce in an episode about a 50th birthday. Like, what? Because I literally thought there was gonna be we're gonna have a lesson about birthdays, but that was not the case because this was all about Mark and Marge's divorce because it was brought up so many times. So the question I have for you guys is, since we talked too much about divorce, I want to just go back to the birthday subject. If you had all the money in the world, what would be your dream birthday day? So, like your next birthday that comes up, what would you do if you had all the money in the world? This is coming from the first scene that we saw that, Claire let Cliff pick what he wanted to do for his birthday. So I want to hear your response at Black TV Shows Pod using the hashtag 50th birthday. Let me know on Twitter and Instagram at Black TV Shows Pod. I would love to hear your responses. And the next episode is episode 69, The Cosby Show Season 3, episode 21, I Know That You Know. I will see you all on the next one.